Senator DeFrancisco.
I'd asked all the senators to please take their seats so that we could determine if everyone's here and actually take the roll call vote.
Secretary will read.
Section 3 of this act should take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Flanagan, Klein, Stewart, Cousins, Young. Ayes 62.
The bill is passed.
We'll now stand at ease until 7:15.
The Senate will stand at ease until 7:15 promptly. Senate is at ease. Will come to order. Senator DeFrancisco.
I just want to make an announcement throughout this building and wherever else senators might be. We try to do this in a logical way by giving people a little time to get something to eat. We're supposed to be back at 7:15. There's a lot of us here, but there is also a lot of empty seats. So if you'd like to come back, it would be helpful. It's the earlier we get done tonight, rather than be here to some ungodly hour. So please, pretty please, if anybody hears this message that's either a senator or someone that knows where a senator is, will you please send them down now? Thank you.
Senate will come to order.
Yes, can we now call the next budget bill on the calendar, please?
Secretary will read.
Senator Young moves to discharge the Committee on Finance Assembly Bill number 9008C and substitute with the identical Senate Bill 6408C, third reading calendar 516.
Substitution is so ordered, and the Secretary will read.
Calendar number 516, Assembly Budget Bill, Assembly Print 9008C, an act intentionally omitted.
A message of necessity at the desk.
There is a message of necessity from the Governor at the desk.
I move to accept.
All in favor of accepting the message of necessity of the Governor at the desk signify by saying aye. Opposed? The message is accepted. Senator Gianaris, what? The gentleman from Queens.
Thank you. Mr. President, I believe there is an amendment at the desk. I ask that the reading be waived and that Senator Hoylman may be heard on the amendment.
Senator Generis, upon review of the amendment, I rule that it is in accordance with Rule 10. It is not germane to the bill before the House and therefore out of order.
The decision of the chair, and I ask that Senator Hoylman be heard on the appeal.
Appeal is so noted and Senator Hoylman is so called upon. Can I have some order in the House, please?
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, my amendment to this legislation is germane because it does maintain the same purpose and addresses the same area of law as the underlying bill. My amendment would preserve existing resources for communities impacted by the closure of fossil fuel power plants as provided in Chapter 20 of the laws of 2015. Now, it further ensures that additional communities that host fossil fuel-powered electric generation plants are eligible to access state assistance when these facilities are retired and permanently shuttered. So, Mr. President, we're trying to get communities to kick the habit of fossil fuels. And we need to do that. We need to provide them with funding to do so, so they're not hurt irreparably. We've already done that. We did that in 2015. But we shouldn't do it this year by raiding the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative. Now, I think most of our colleagues know what RGGI is. It's the nation's first cap-and-trade program. It's designed to cut carbon pollution from the power sector. Now, we know about carbon and carbon emissions. Climate change, as many of us have said on this floor, is the greatest threat to our national security, to our economy, to our humanity. So we shouldn't be cutting the funds that will actually help us overcome climate change. Over the last 7 years, RGGI has helped participating states cut power plant carbon pollution by more than 35%, while adding public health savings by more than $10 billion. That's 30,000 job years of work, almost 40 million in energy bill savings, and 2.4 billion to the regional economy. That's New York and the other 7 states that are participating. According to an independent analysis just this past July, New York can claim 4,500 jobs created from RGGI. Now, current law protects these jobs while helping communities where fossil plants close permanently, as it should be. A $30 million raid of RGGI, though, would pull about 18% of RGGI's revenue, 1/5 of it, over the past year. And that raid, according to these calculations, would kill over 800 jobs. NYSERDA has said that for every dollar we invest in clean energies, homeowners save about $3. And if you count that multiplier effect, this raid on RGGI, this $30 million raid on RGGI, would cost about $90 million in energy cost savings for working families here in New York. We should have solar and wind in these communities where power plants are shutting. But by actually raiding RGGI, it's a self-defeating prophecy. RGGI shouldn't be used for the vestiges, Mr. President, of the fossil fuel addiction. That's what the general fund, that's what we determined that the general fund should be used for. That's what we determined to do last year. We should stick with last year's plan. We should leave RGGI alone. We've identified the right money to help these communities that have had power plants closing, to backfill those property tax losses. That's the right thing to do. That's the right money. We're just using, respectfully, Mr. President, the wrong source. So I would ask my colleagues to join me in voting for this amendment, and nothing personal, Mr. President, against your ruling. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Hoylman. Senator Hoylman has been heard on the appeal. The question is a procedural question before the House. All in favor of overriding the Ruling of the chair signify by saying aye.
Show of hands, please.
Show of hands has been requested and so instructed. Announce.
Ayes 25.
The ruling of the chair is sustained. The bill is before the House. Senator DeLon.
Yes, Mr. President, I would,
Excuse me. Have some order in the House, please. Thank you. Senator DeLon.
I would ask the sponsor, she would yield for some questions.
Request has been made of the sponsor to yield for questions from Senator DeLon. Sponsor yields.
Thank you. Mr. President, these are perhaps questions which I would have asked during the Budget Subcommittee hearings under the mothership, and I know that I sat at 2 meetings of the transportation table where eventually we got a $5 million target, which I thought at the time was really insignificant in the whole scope of the theme of the budget. But I know we had these 2 hearings and there was never closure to the subcommittees. I want to know what happened. Why didn't we have closure at the subcommittee, budget subcommittees? And what happened to all the money that was targeted at the various tables and how was that allocated?
Through you, Mr. President, it isn't part of this bill right now, but it will be taken up later, and it'll be $5 million for upstate transit.
Okay. I know that with your opening, I'm sorry, Mr. President, with the
Sponsor yield.
sponsor yield.
Sponsor yields. Again, can I have some order, please?
Mr. President, the opening remarks of the sponsor, the senator listed a number of targets for the Department of Transportation and its capital budget. I believe it was to the tune of $25 billion plus. So basically, I want to know if she could reiterate those numbers, and was the DOT capital plan funded under this budget plan?
Sure. Well, I'll give you, Senator, what I talked about at the beginning. That'll be in a separate budget. Those figures will be in the capital budget when that comes before the House. But what we're looking at is a $25.1 billion multi-year DOT capital plan. So it'd be additional funds for roads and bridges and non-MTA upstate and downstate transit, rail freight, and aviation, which I know you're interested in all those subjects.
This is Senator continue to you.
Yields.
So what you're telling us is that when the appropriate bill comes before this chamber, we can have further discussion on this issue? Okay, and 2 more questions. Does the member continue to yield? With respect to the MTA capital funding, I know that earlier this year or late last year, there was an MOU by the governor and the mayor of the city of New York, and there was a commitment of $7.3 billion by the state. I would like to know where that funding is and how do we expect to fund the MTA capital plan?
So through you, Mr. President, you'll notice in the sheet that you have on your desk, there's Part A, Part B, and Part C. And those are omitted right at the moment. Those actually will be included in the education, labor, and family assistance part of the budget. And those will be dealing with MTA financing and reforms.
Mr. President, the chair continue to...
Sponsor yields.
Yes.
Yeah, basically my final question. So basically it appears that the MTA capital funding is basically an IOU, is that correct?
Through you, Mr. President, Senator DeLon, just to answer his question, that will be addressed in the Alpha Bill.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator DeLon. Senator Squadron.
Thank you very much. If the sponsor would yield.
Yes.
Sponsor yields.
Thank you very much. And I thank my colleague, Senator DeLon, the ranking member of the Transportation Committee, for his questions. And I do look forward to the bill where we can address these. I do want to ask, though, Chairman Prendergast, the chair of the MTA, said just a week ago, reported in both Capital and Gothamist, quote, June 30th of this year, that's when we run out of money. The MTA runs out of money unless there's a capital plan approved with a funding source. Is there anything between now and the time we see the new bill that we can tell the chair of the MTA and the millions of riders who depend on buses and subways to give them confidence they will not run out of money for their capital plan before June 30th?
Thank you, Mr. President. The MTA needs have to be reviewed by the Capital Program Review Board, and those issues will be addressed prior to the deadline.
The sponsor will continue to yield.
Yes.
Sponsor yields.
And a final question. Similarly, the chair and the CFO of the MTA have said that they're not going to be able to go out to the bond market to finance capital projects without additional revenues coming to the MTA. Is there anything that we can tell leadership of the MTA, the bond market, and the millions of riders who depend on buses and subways every day, and commuter rail throughout the downstate region to move our economy, about the assurance of a funding source to allow them to go to the bond market before June 30th?
Thank you, Mr. President. For the MTA, those needs will be reflected by the MTA when the time is appropriate, when they come to the state to get those funds that are necessary. And so we'll be looking forward to getting that information from the MTA.
Continue to yield. A follow-up question.
Sponsor
I thought you said it
yield.
was the last question.
It was, but that answer was had a lot in it, which I appreciate. So just a follow-up to the information on that question. To clarify, the MTA will only, is the sponsor saying the MTA will only get that funding when the MTA comes back to the legislature, or has the MTA sufficiently come to the legislature that it's now kind of on us, and we'll see it in a future bill, as the sponsor said minutes ago? Just clarity.
Those needs will be addressed in upcoming budgets as they become apparent based on information from the MTA.
Thank you. On the bill?
Senator Squadron on the bill.
I appreciate the sponsor being clear with Senator DeLon, and again now that these issues will be addressed in this budget. To anyone still negotiating the budget in any rooms in this building, I would strongly urge, if you're listening, please go beyond the IOU that Senator DeLon referenced. Please find real funding for the MTA's capital program, for the Road and Bridge capital program. Real dollars. Both are critical pieces of our economy, of lifestyles in every corner of this state. And I look forward to that bill coming out in the next hours or days and discussing the MTA capital plan at that point. But again, to any negotiators out there, find the money. Let's not do an IOU. I don't take the subway with an IOU. I do it with a MetroCard. Don't fund the capital plan with an IOU. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Hoylman.
On the bill,
Senator Hoylman on the bill.
I just wanted to express my disappointment, Mr. President, that once again, due to the actions of this chamber, we're delaying the implementation of the Diesel Emissions Reduction Act. You know, that is a law that was passed with broad bipartisan support from our friends on the other side of the aisle, as well as ours, 10 years ago. The goal to reduce airborne fine particulate matter that's linked to asthma, scientifically proven in so many of our communities to cause asthma in young people. I mentioned the other day that I was visited by a mother who told me that her daughter had been to the hospital 21 times since January for asthma-related illness. It's also related to heart attacks and lung cancer. We should have done this 6 years ago. And every month, it seems, we get more evidence as to why we should do it. Just yesterday, a report was issued by a hospital in my district, NYU Langone School of Medicine, that found that premature births linked to exposure to air pollution cost the U.S. more than $4 billion a year in medical care and lost economic opportunity. Air pollution, including the fine particulate matter that is caused by inefficient diesel engines, the ones we're talking about in DERA, can result in the toxic buildup, according to this report, and in the blood of women, causing immune system distress that weakens the placenta and shortens the amount of time that babies can actually stay in the womb. That's pretty serious stuff. So I hope that when we consider this bill tonight, we'll understand that we've been, in fact, very short-sighted in understanding the health risks that are caused by diesel and fully grappling, Mr. President, with the impact that we're unleashing on our fellow citizens by not implementing a law that we passed a decade ago. Thank you.
Senator Sanders.
Thank you, Mr. President. On the bill,
Senator Sanders on the bill.
I'm concerned about some of the MWBE language that's in the bill. It causes me great concern. Now, we've all established that, of course, MWBE is the law of the land, and as a law, it should supersede whatever understandings that we have, and we're all trying to get to the governor's goal of 30%. And I fear that this bill, the way it is written, may undercut that. And here's how I believe that it will do so. We're not taking into account what design bill means in terms of the MWBE requirements, nor are we looking at what is called best value and even the labor project agreements. When you start putting all of these things in, you're undercutting the Cranston decision. The Cranston decision, of course, is what allows you to have an MWBE program. The Cranston decision, of course, was written so specific that you can't just put things in, because if you do, you're making sure that that you won't have a program. So when you're speaking of LaGuardia redevelopment and all of these other redevelopment projects, from my point of view, you'll never get to your 30% or anything placed close to it if you're tacking on more and more of these other worthy goals. And when you start coming in with other language, language that says MWBE participation is still required to the extent practicable, you're saying you're contradicting the decision. If you're saying that you have a decision, MWBE, and then you're saying, well, we'll only do it where we believe it is, where we believe that we can make it work, instead of obeying the law of the land, you're contradicting the thing. So I'm urging my colleagues to look at this part, and perhaps as we get further into finding out what is this budget that we're really doing, what is this, we can further define and carve some of these things that will handicap the program out. So just some concerns that I'm hoping that my colleagues will take into account as we go through this process. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Senator Panapinto.
Yes, Mr. President, I have some questions for the sponsor on this bill.
Sponsor yield.
Sure.
Sponsor yields.
Mr. President, I'd like to know from the sponsor, it seems to me by reading the language on this bill that we have changed our procedure for allowing municipalities to access money from the closure of power plants. And I want to know if that is if I'm in fact reading it correctly.
Mr. President, so I believe that Senator Panapinto is asking for the $30 million power plant mitigation fund that was established by the Senate last year at an amount of $19 million. It's been changed this year to add more funds to it so that it would total $30 million. And included in that, there is language that would change the requirements for those funds to be distributed.
Mr. Speaker, may I ask another question?
Sure. Sponsor yield. Sponsor yields.
So the change in the language then is if there's a reduction in the tax revenue that is paid to municipality, if it drops down 20%, the municipality or school district could then access these transition funds. Is that what the legislation does now?
So through you, Mr. President, just to clarify, the language basically is based on the impact. Previously, it was based on the impact of the total taxes. Now it's based on the loss of the payment in lieu of taxes that exists in many of communities. For example, I know you have the Huntley plant in your community in Tonawanda. I have the NRG plant, both same company, in Dunkirk in my district. And so basically, this would help deal with the loss of the pilot funding to help the school, to help the county, and also to help the town of Tonawanda or the city of Dunkirk.
Mr. Speaker, would the sponsor continue to yield?
Yes.
Sponsor yields.
So by way of example, in the town of Tonawanda, the Huntley Power Plant pays over $6 million to the school district and municipality. If they had a reduction of 20% of that money, they would then have access to these funds according to the new language.
So through you, Mr. President, I'm not clear where the Huntley plant is as far as closure goes. It's my understanding it's in the process of being closed, or it's closed already, but...
Closed already as of March 1st.
And I'm not sure what NRG did as far as the pilot payment went, but according to the language, it says the closing of such a facility has caused a reduction in the real property tax collections or payments in lieu of taxes of at least 20% owed by such electric generating facility.
So Mr. President, will the sponsor continue to yield?
Yes.
Sponsor yields.
So my example is that Huntley paid $6 million in their pilot payments already this year. They're going to attempt to recoup that money. If they recoup 70% of that, would the town of Tonawanda then be eligible for these payments?
Yes, through you, Mr. President. So basically the way the program works is that if there's a tax loss that's significant because the pilot has been reduced, then that loss will be able to recoup from the state mitigation fund 80% of the lost revenues. Yes.
Sponsor yields.
According to the language in the here in the bill, it would be 80% of the lost tax revenue in the first year. What would the years 2 through 5? What amount could they recoup in those years?
I believe that it's the maximum is for 5 years, just to give communities time to be able to transition, and I believe that you could probably secure, and it's a year-to-year basis. Let me make that clear. So, this body, the governor would have, and the assembly would have to agree in the next budget to have such funds available. But the language says that communities could qualify that are impacted for up to 5 years.
Mr. President, would the sponsor continue to yield?
Yes.
Sponsor yields.
I understand that, Mr. President, that they could continue to apply for up to 5 years. The language says 80% in the first year. Would that 80% continue in years 2 through 5?
Through you, Mr. President, I think that probably would be determined in this coming year's, the next year's budget, the exact specifics.
On the bill, Mr. President.
Senator Panapinto on the bill.
I want to thank Senator Young and Senator Ranzenhofer and our friends in the Assembly for, working on this very important bill. I mean, having money available for just transition for communities that lose coal or oil power plants is critically important around the state. We have 5 coal plants. We have 2 closing in Western New York, probably 3 more in the upcoming years. The governor's committed to closing them all by 2020. These communities cannot exist if we don't prepare them for a transition off of their addiction to their power plants. So I want to commend my colleagues on the other side, thank the governor, and thank our colleagues in the Assembly for coming up with a solution which will help the city of Dunkirk, the town of Tonawanda, and other municipalities around the state. Thank you, Mr. President. I'll be in the affirmative.
Thank you, Senator Panapinto. Senator DeLon.
Yes, I have one further question of the sponsor, and I'd like to know.
Senator Young, do you yield?
Yes.
Senator yields.
Yes, Mr. President, my question is, I recall during the budget hearings initially when we first started, we questioned the Commissioner of DOT with respect to some transparency issues, especially when it came to DOT's project list. And at that time, the commissioner promised that we would have a project list before we voted on the capital plan. I want to know if we have received that project list.
So through you, Mr. President, there's an MOU that will be put together, and when that MOU is signed, that list will be released.
We can expect to see a project list upon approval of this budget or before it?
So through you, Mr. President, this is a parity issue, so at the same time that list is released for the MOU, the same actions will be taken on behalf of the MTA so that you have those projects outlined very clearly also.
On the bill?
Senator DeLon on the bill.
Yeah, I'd just like to make the point that with respect to transparency, the MTA has always had a project list, and they submitted that to us, and upon its original submission to us, it was immediately vetoed by the DOT commissioner. So as far as I'm concerned, there has been transparency on the part of the MTA, and I hope that the commissioner of DOT keeps the promise it made to the Finance Committee. So I will be voting on the affirmative on this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator DeLon. And hearing no other senator that wishes to be heard, debate is closed. The secretary will ring the bell. We welcome the distinguished Speaker of the Assembly to the House. Speaker Hasty, welcome to the Senate. Read the last section.
Section 3, this act should take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Fuente, Klein, Stewart, Cousins, Young. Aye, 62.
Bill is passed. Senator DeFrancisco.
We are now simply waiting for direction at this point in time, and hopefully we will have it soon so everybody can know what we're going to be doing. Hopefully it'll be just a few minutes more. So if we'll can stand at ease in place, in place.
Very good terminology. The Senate will stand at ease in place. Senate will come to order. Senator DeFrancisco.
Yes, I've just been informed that there will be a Finance Committee meeting at 9:15 this evening. The bill is being printed, and the next bill is being printed. So that's basically where we are. So we are at ease until after the Finance Committee.
There will be a Finance Committee in room 332. Finance Committee meeting in room 332 at 9:15. Once again, all members of the Senate Finance Committee are to report at 9:15 to room 332. The Senate will come into session following the meeting of the Finance Committee. Until such time, the Senate will stand at ease. Senator Gianaris, can I have some order, please? Senator Gianaris, I'm banging that so you can have attention now.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. There will be an immediate Democratic conference in the Democratic conference room.
There will be an immediate meeting of the Democrat conference in the Democrat conference room. An immediate meeting of the Democrat conference in the Democrat conference room on the third floor. The Senate is at ease.
Francisco.
Yes, you have on the desk Senate Supplemental Calendar number 29B. I would request that you do the non-controversial reading.
There is a message of necessity at the desk.
I move that you accept it.
First, we'll accept the Finance Committee report with your approval.
I definitely approve.
All in favor of the Secretary will read the finance report.
Senator Young from the Committee on Finance reports the following bill. Senate Print 6409C, Senate Budget Bill, an act to amend the real property tax law.
All in favor
All bills reported direct to third reading.
All in favor of accepting the report of the Finance Committee signify by saying aye. Opposed, the committee is accepted and before the House. There is a message at the desk. Senator DeFrancisco.
I move to accept.
All in favor of accepting the message of necessity of the governor signify by saying aye. Opposed, the message is accepted and the bill is before the House. Can we
The
read
non-
it first, Senator Gianaris?
Non,
All right. Secretary will read.
the non-controversial reading,
Okay.
please.
Calendar number 517, Senate Budget Bill, Senate Print 6409C, an act to amend the real property tax law.
Bill's laid aside. Secretary will ring the bell.
Okay, do you have it?
Secretary will read.
Calendar number 517, Senate Budget Bill, Senate Print 6409C, an act to amend the real property tax law.
Senator Kruger.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you, the sponsor would yield, please.
Sponsor yield.
Certainly.